Hello, Internet, and welcome to the 15th episode of Deep Fried Neurons podcast. It's a podcast about stories that I find interesting, and you've heard this about 15 times by now. So I'll just cue the fucking. When it comes to the stories of the supernatural or paranormal, India's got plenty of them. And I genuinely believe that every part of this country has a ghost story unique to itself. I know it to be true to the extent of my travels in the country. Do I believe these stories are true in the context of what they say about the existence of supernatural entities? Definitely not. I want to make sure that I'm not enabling any ghost believers. Hence, I think I should put it out there. I do not believe that ghosts exist. The reason I'm being so clear about this is that India also has a deeply rooted tradition of giving into superstitions, and I don't want to validate anybody's beliefs in these things. Because let's be fair, especially in the rural areas and even to some extent in urban areas, witch burning and ritual sacrifice is not completely in our past yet. Especially given the recent events. I have discussed a tantric ritual called Kajli in a previous episode in the form of a story. I wish it was completely fictional, or at least in the past, but it's not. I've linked the said episode and articles reporting on these ritual killings in the description if you want to know more about them. One of them is about a ghost. The rest of the crimes are about getting an obscene amount of money. However, I find the stories to be truly interesting, and that is why I want to discuss them with you, my audience. Now, we're past the disclaimer, I can actually get to the episode. I mean, you might have guessed it from the title. I wanted to talk about Gaurav Tiwari. He started out as an actor. His Wikipedia page tells me that he was in Tango Charlie and December 16. Tango Charlie is a good movie. If you really want to be entertained, I suggest watching Tango Charlie. Then he became a commercial pilot. I heard him talk at a TEDx event online, and it leads me to believe that during his time as a pilot in Florida, he came across incidents that turned his attention towards the paranormal. After that, he got his anomalous investigator certificate from Paranexus Association somewhere in the United States. He also has a couple of certification from in spiritual counselor and hypnotism from the Institute of Metaphysical Science in Florida. Then he came back to India and started the Indian Paranormal Society. To Gaurav's credit, he did debunk any belief people had in their experiments with Ouija boards, which I thought was great. He actually said that Ouija boards are just toys. Do I agree with Gaurav on his beliefs about ghosts? Definitely not. His research had equipment and communication devices to establish intelligent communication with ghosts based on fluctuations in echoes and electromagnetic waves in the surroundings. But I doubt how much of it was really unveiling the truth. It looked very vague when I looked at it. But to be fair, the guy did not dramatize his research too much, which I can respect about somebody trying to make a show out of these things. Indian Paranormal Society has done an episode on Bhangad as well, which I should point out. Bhangad is one of the most haunted places in the world. And I've been meaning to cover it on this podcast as well. I'll get to it for sure. I'm writing it. Gaurav was also on a few MTV shows here in India and had a show in Australia called Haunting Australia. So overall, he was really successful as a paranormal researcher and investigator. Now, the way Gaurav Tiwari has made his public appearances and given his qualifications, especially given his appearances on MTV, and a lot of people would brush him off as a prolonged act who acts to believe in ghosts but actually doesn't. I highly doubt that. I don't think Gaurav Tiwari was a complete scam. I mean, I don't know what qualifications would people ever respect when it comes to paranormal research. Even academics, none of them, I would assume, would ever look at paranormal research as a real branch in studies. And I have no idea how would you structure research for a topic so sensational. And basically, his research doesn't seem to be a lot to me in the context of conclusively proving that ghosts exist. But it does seem like he gives a shit about finding the truth. All of his research is inconclusive, no doubt, and tends to lean towards belief, even though it has a fairly empirical approach. Again, I give him credit to bring an empirical approach to the table. I do not think he's a complete scam, and he never conclusively proved that ghosts exist. Even his Bhangad episode, he actually said at the end of it that Bhangad is not haunted at all, it's just creepy. And I've been to Bhangad, I never saw any ghosts, but I can assure you it is pretty creepy. I understand why the place has gotten such a reputation for being creepy. But here's what twists my noggin, and this is why I wanted to talk about it. On July 7th, 2016, Mr. Tiwari was just checking his emails in his house in Dwarka, Delhi. He goes into the bathroom to take a bath, latches the door from the inside, and then stays there quite a while. His wife and his father get worried. They break open the door and find him dead. They call the hospital and the cops, and the investigation began. The bathroom has no other points of entry, the door was conclusively locked from the outside, and the cause of death was termed to be asphyxiation or lack of breathing. Did I say that right, by the way? Please don't correct me in the comments. I know how it's spelled. The autopsy revealed a black line across his neck, suggesting external force was applied in order to kill him. Hanging wasn't done because he wasn't found hanging. Duh. Police suspect suicide to this day since the murder was ruled out. No points of entry. He did say something along the lines of some negative energies are pulling me towards itself, but that's not the first time he said it. Like, it was a private conversation between him and his wife or something like that. And there is no object that they could find that might be used in his in choking him. The reason I'm talking about this story is that it's plain freaky. That's one of my major intentions. Not to mention, this is what made him astronomically more famous. Gaurav Tiwari has been discussed on every major Hindi news channel, and that's how he got on my radar as well. The internet has not even blinked before suggesting that paranormal entities were involved in his death. Now, I'll agree that a reportedly mentally sound, healthy 32-year-old paranormal expert dying in a suspected suicide in mysterious conditions is the ideal fodder for all kinds of theories. Some would say that it's conclusive proof for the existence of such entities, but I would like you to consider the following. Gaurav Tiwari put himself through enormous amounts of mental and physical stress in his research. I mean, the case even had an angle of the strain between him and his family, because his family was not very happy with his job. Apparently there was a big fight right before his suicide as to what he was willing to do and did in his pursuit to look for paranormal entities. Is that he's put himself in a haunted morgue's freezer with nothing but warm clothes, a flashlight, and a thermal camera, and stayed there for the entire night to see if there's any activity in there. He also has gone into the world's most haunted prison in Australia. He's entered the ruins of Bhangad, where him and his team were the only people for an entire night, along with hyenas and probably creepy spirits. Altogether, Gaurav has researched about 6,000 haunted places, trying to push himself to find the truth about an actual ghost haunting. I personally believe that it is guaranteed to mess with your perception of reality and sense of objectivity. So no wonder he believed the things he believed. But it also has to add to his suicide as well. It's abrupt. I have no doubt about it. We can't even make sure that was it an accident, was it an actual suicide, because There's no indications of it. There's no financial stress. His peers seem to report him to be completely mentally sound. His family seems to say the same thing. But when people speculate his death, they directly go to the paranormal. I'm pretty sure Ashtak did a piece on his death. You should look at this shit. It's 17 minutes of them talking about how the paranormal might be interested, was directly interested in killing Gaurav Tiwari. I'm not kidding. This is a major news network in the country. And I just thought that we should weigh in on it. Now, I have to admit that the fact that the way it happened was a factor for why I covered it, but I have to be responsible with this. I mean, I genuinely think no spirits were involved in his death. To be honest, asking that question seems weird. Like, especially given his line of work and how much physical stress and psychological stress he would put himself through in these shows. Again, it's just a theory. I don't know what actually happened. We actually might never know what happened. In conclusion, what I wanted to say was Gaurav Tiwari's death and the mysterious circumstances surrounding them could have been probably handled better. The newspapers handled it well, but the Hindi news channels, Aaj Tak in specific, because that's the coverage I've been watching for a while, was extremely sensational. It wasn't fact driven. It didn't seem fact driven, at least the way I looked at it. So, thank you for joining in. And, well, support us on Patreon if you can. Like our Facebook and Instagram pages for the memes, and see you next week. Bye.